Hello and welcome to the Free to Be Show. Tonight's topic is super exciting, and I'm sure many of you will want to know more about pursuing marriage and detachment. This is something that we don't put all those words in the same sentence, but you'll understand when I introduce you to the author of Before I Do. So stay with us. This will be a great show.
To the Free to Be Show. I am the world's best joy monger. Yes, I made that word up. I'm here holding space for you to reveal your joy. I'm also the host of 2 podcasts, the author of 8 books, and the mother of 6 children. Here on the Free to Be Show, this is your time to see in your mind and your heart whether or not you are truly free. So are you free? Let's see.
And we're back. So I'm excited to introduce you to my guest. Her name is Zahra Aljabari, and she is a relationship coach, serial entrepreneur, and the author of Before I Do, 150 Questions Muslims Must Ask Before Marriage. And I dare say this is for anyone who's looking to get married. The defined step-by-step guide on how to connect with your soulmate. Zahra coaches clients through her signature framework so they can create loving, passionate, and miraculous marriages. You can get Zahra's deep insights and wisdom on her YouTube channel and Instagram. And she's currently living with her beautiful family of 4 children with her husband. Welcome to the show.
Alaikum. Thank you for having me.
Wa alaikum salam. I'm so happy you're here. So, before we begin, what is it that prompted you to free yourself from the normal way of, writing a book about marriage?
What is it that prompted? This is a really good question. So, what prompted me was knowing how I went about my own process. And then, since that time, supporting others who are looking to get married, wanting to get married, and struggling to really connect with love, and getting that kind of intimate view into what's happening in individuals' lives and like even in my own life, and then the broader view of what's happening in general in society and the culture and all of these things, and realizing that there's trends, there's themes that can just be addressed, that we can talk about it, we can coach people through it, we can look at them in a different way that's going to get people like over that hurdle. And so that's really what kind of prompted me to like, okay, let me just put pen to paper and like and get this idea out.
Yeah, I love that. You mentioned trends. What are some of the trends you've seen that people kind of fall into when seeking marriage? I'm going to put you on solo view. So,
Okay. Yes, the trends I've seen is that, of course, we have seen like the rising divorce rate, right? It's not only in the Muslim community; it's across the board. But the Muslim community is not like having that much better numbers than the general community. So we're seeing that trend. We're seeing the trend of people getting married later and later in life, and many of them not by choice, right? It would be one thing if people are like, oh, I'm just delaying marriage because I want to. It's like, no, they're looking and they are not able to get married. Those are probably like the 2 biggest trends. I guess the third trend is that even like the courtship process, people coming into relationships, halal dating or not halal dating, whatever it is, just really struggling to connect with people, with the other gender, with another person in general. in a healthy, meaningful way that allows someone to like build a rapport, build a dialogue, build a connection, build a trust that could turn into a marriage or a long-term relationship. And even at that initial stage, seeing things just break down.
Really great points. I especially like the point about halal dating and healthy connection. So let's like work on some definitions now. So let's say what would be the definition of healthy connection with others?
Healthy connection. I mean, it's the title of your show, right? It's free to be. It's a connection where you feel free. You feel free to tell the person, look, I'm tired. I don't want to, do that thing or go to that place or whatever. Or free to say, like, I need you. I need you to come over. I need us to do something. Like, you are just free to be yourself. You don't feel that you need to perform and that you have to be expected to be in a certain way. You can't say something that might offend. You're tiptoeing. All of those things wherein, there's many relationships, especially for Muslims in the West, where we are not free to be, right? In the workplace, maybe we're hiding our religiousness. Maybe at home, we are hiding, our Americanness. Maybe, with our friends, we are hiding that we are actually maybe like more reserved or conservative than we are, which are pretending to be more outrageous or outlandish. Like, we're in so many different aspects of our lives, we wear masks, right? We just blend in, what do they call it? Code switching and blend,
Right.
all of the things that you like, okay, in this area I have to be like this, have to be like this. But where's the place where you get to be free to be yourself? Where is
Yeah.
that place? And it's supposed to be marriage, right? It's supposed to be marriage as one of the places where it's designed to be that free, safe place that, like, literally and figuratively, like, you can just be yourself, like you could expose your naked self, right, in this relationship. And if you don't have any place to do that, it's exhausting to constantly be wearing different masks and have no place where you can let your guard down. And so a healthy relationship allows you to have at least that one place, and it could be with your parents or with a friend or with a colleague or something. But one of the places should be marriage, right? It's really hard to be in a marriage where you can't be yourself. That's why those types of marriages tend to fail or just be miserable. And so that, to me, is kind of like the baseline of a healthy marriage. And although it's like kind of simple and straightforward, it's like extremely difficult because our whole lives we've been taught to like hide different parts of ourselves. When you get to this place and like, I'm just going to tell you all of me, or I can just be free to be me. I don't know if you're going to like that. I don't know if I can trust that you will hold that space for me. So we continue to wear our mask and then wonder why it's so difficult, why it's so hard, why we're playing games. It's because we're not free.
I love it. That is like, that's so true, right? And when we spoke initially a couple of weeks ago, that's why I was thinking the perfect title would be Pursuing Marriage and Detachment, because like when you're free, you're detaching from all those masks. You're creating a world where you can be safe and vulnerable and intimate all in one place, and that begins in the courtship process. And it's so great that you mentioned a lot of times when it comes to our cultural filters, we're taught not to do those things. There's a set of, what would we call those, like criteria that we're given, right?
Mhm.
Like when you meet the family of the person that you are interested in, you behave like this. Don't let them know that you think this, and like don't share too much of your political views. And but why? Because you're with them for the rest of your life. So that brings me to another question. I'm curious, like when you're working with people, I'm sure this book was born not only out of your own personal experiences, but out of coaching. You must have seen a lot of cultural filters come up. I mean, do you mind using I know you talk about this in the book, so do you mind bringing up, your own personal experience? Like, you come from a different culture than your husband.
Yeah, yeah. So just clarify your question a little bit more, like the cultural differences, to not let that be a barrier, kind of. Is that what you mean?
Yeah. How did you, like, you give a great recounting of how you had two different cultural filters, right?
Mm-hmm.
You come from one background, he comes from another. And so, but for the people who haven't read your book yet, can you just use that as an example of how you don't have to use that as a barrier, right? Because in the Muslim community, I don't really, well, I'm going to go ahead and just say that it's a free to be show. I'll be free, right? So, like, my ex-husband was Bangladeshi, right? And I'm Black American. And, like, the first thing that part of his family was like, oh, she's Black, like, why would you want to be with that person? And I know that, like, there's a lot of those things in the culture, in the Muslim community. It's like, oh, don't be with, Pashtu, and like, all this, like, thing. But it's not about the culture that the person comes from, because in a perfect world we're all Muslim, right?
Yeah.
It's more about who that person is on the inside. So
Yeah. I mean, okay. So thank you for kind of setting that up. Yes, the culture and like I would even say kind of just the whole outside trappings of a person can really trip people up, right? Like, I hear from women, I want to marry someone who's a doctor. I want to marry someone from, who's from this specific tribe in my country. I want to marry someone who, whatever, is this tall. And this on both sides, right? I want someone tall because I'm short. I want someone shorter because I'm not that tall. Like, all of these things. And when we let these kind of physical characteristics, cultural characteristics, and those things be more prominent than they need to be. Now, I'm not saying that you can't have preferences and you can't like what you like. Like, you can. Like, you can't help what you're drawn to or what you're attracted to in any of those things. But where it can trip you up is when that can take precedence or be more prominent than the actual kind of fit between the two of you. And the fit between the two of you is a spiritual fit. Spirit to spirit, you guys are going to be connecting, right? Your appearances are going to change. You could get sick, something could happen. The appearances, you can lose your job, that career, that field of work can just go out, or whatever, transition from who knows how the next 10 years of the economy, the world will go. So if you get caught up on these things that are transient, that are fleeting, and make that one of your kind of criteria that you feel really strongly about, it can leave you blowing in the wind because that thing is fleeting. And so what we do in the book, and what we're encouraging all of my clients to do, is really first get to understand your spirit, right? What is it, like, free to be me is free to be your true spiritual self. Like, where is it that my spirit yearns for, that I want, that, and you might not even know these things because of all the layers and all the masks you've worn, but to just allow yourself that opening to explore, what is it that my true self, my spiritual self, like, it really is, like, in the freest sense, and get as much, allow for whatever comes out to come out, and then looking to connect with someone, to connect with their spirit. So the questions that we're asking, that we lay out in the book, and the whole framework of how we guide people to approach having these discussions, is to, again, look beyond the answer. So if you're talking about someone, for example, where you want to live, and you're like, oh, I only want to live in the United States. Another person, well, I want to live a nomadic lifestyle and travel here and there. You might say, okay, we don't agree, like, we need to part. But what I would say is, like, okay, you have totally different answers. It doesn't mean now you're incompatible, this can't work. It means we need to go now at a deeper level. Now, what does, staying in the United States mean for you? Oh, it means, whatever, access to these different things, or nearness to my family, or When I was a child, I was traveling around in all sorts of places, and I want some stability. And for the other person, understanding and you can get to a deeper level and understand, oh, this person is just craving like a secure home base. They're okay with traveling as long as they know a home base. And you can then learn, maybe the nomadic person is like, I don't want to feel tied down to anything in case there is some political or something upheaval. I want to know that I can move and get away. It's like, okay, well, maybe that means that we're renting in some place, but we have a place that's, a home base that we're renting in, and we travel, whatever. Like, you could make something of it, but you have to go deeper. You have to go beyond just that first initial answer. Likewise, you can do that even on the cultural level, right? For my example, as you were sharing, my parents are immigrants from Kenya, and I grew up in, California, white suburbia, and my husband is half Algerian, half white, and he grew up most of his life in Algeria. So we had this kind of, we had a lot of similarities, but cultural differences, and we had to understand, what is it, just like I'm saying about going deeper, what is it that we more deeply valued? And when we would go to these deeper levels, we realized that we valued and had the same attitude and mindset towards a lot of things. The expression of them came out differently for each of us, but the values were shared. And so when you align on those shared values and you feel that connection spirit to spirit of like, okay, like they understand, my perspective and what's important to me, and they share that with me, even though it's expressed in a different way, you can have a greater, it allows you to realize there's more ways for you to express your own values. So instead of shutting down and saying like, well, this is the only way to, show that you are free, right, is to be nomadic, right? You're showing, now that you're allowing the other person to see there's another way to be free, even when you're anchored down. And what does that look like? And you can, and in that way, marriage can, or, having these intimate conversations with anyone really can help you just gain more of a sense of what it is that really is important to you and how expansive you can be. Because basically, we kind of have, with all our masks and all of these things, we've kind of put ourselves into boxes. And instead of allowing ourselves to grow and have spaciousness, we keep constricting the box, right? Like, you go to high school, then you go to college, and now I have this degree, and then I get a graduate degree, and now I'm this thing, and now I'm a professional, and now I have to have this income bracket, and now and we keep constricting. And the whole time we're like, I thought this was supposed to allow me more freedom to, have more income so I could be more free, but instead you feel more and more and more constricted. And when you start having these conversations, you can allow yourself to kind of expand back out, and it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. I love it. I'm showing that I guess I counted that there's a total of like 17 categories
Yes.
that the questions are under. And I love the invitation for you to go through the questions yourself, because like you said, like we may not even know who we are. And I know there's always that push in the Muslim community, you're X number of years old, right? I'm not going to say any ages, but like you're 18 or you're 25 or whatever, and you need to get married. And you may genuinely feel like you don't know who you are, but having your book to read, and like I started going through the questions, I was like, oh my goodness, like I thought I knew myself, but each iteration of our lives, like you said, the more we evolve and expand, right? The more we are not aware of who we're becoming. And just that centering on knowing who you are will help you to better align with someone else. And also, I would say, just from reading the book the one time, and I only got through two categories. It's a lot.
There's a lot.
You have to really be committed. This is, you'll know whether or not you're actually ready and really committed to seeking a partner, just getting through each category. So, what's the intention of the book? Do we have to like do it category by category, or can we skip around and just pick the one we want to start with?
Yeah, our recommendation, and our intention with the book is that if we wanted to give readers everything to cover their bases, right? To feel like if I've gone through this book, like I have a good understanding of where I stand and where they stand, and so now we can, I'm making a kind of a clear-headed decision, because the first intention of the book is to get people into that deeper level, because it's very easy, especially in today's day and age where we're constantly distracted, there's so much going on, and we don't have deep connections with a lot of people. We're used to our masks and our how's the weather, oh my god, what's the most ridiculous thing a celebrity did, blah blah blah, kind of conversations that are not really like, how are you doing, like how are you feeling, how are you like coping with all of this, right? We're just, oh, I'm fine, right? Like you move on. So the first intention is to not let people mistake the courtship process for that kind of a thing. For me to be like talking to someone and then, how was your day? What's going on with your boss? Okay, having that kind of daily check-in conversation, and then, all right, I wanted to ask you, like, what are your career aspirations? And then kind of having a shallow kind of conversation around, oh yeah, I'm going to keep working here, and then I hope to get promoted, and then inshallah, buy a house, whatever. Just kind of like giving each other the script, right? The social script that we've all been fed about what you should want and what you should do and what you should say. So the questions are designed to help you to appreciate that that script will not teach you anything about the other person. And then if you think that you're getting to know them and then you get married and you're like, oh my God, how come it's everything like what we thought we talked about it? And like, no, you didn't talk about it. That's why it's, all nonsense and crazy. Or like the relationship just falls apart. Like, I don't understand. Things tend to be going so well. We talked every day, but you weren't talking about anything meaningful. You're just checking in on how was your day? How was your day? My family said this, we said that.
That point right there, I've noticed that with my friendships as of late, that we talk, we use a lot of words, and we say nothing. That is like the number one thing. So like I was just a little bit joking when I said your book's a lot. It's like the questions that I actually think that I want to have in a conversation with just like anybody, not even just seeking a partner. It's like, wow, now I have permission to go deeper, as deep as I want, because I'm so sick and tired of talking and using words and saying nothing.
Saying nothing. Yes. Yes.
Like, I had a whole 20-year marriage, and like if your book had been written back then, I'd probably still be married. You know what I'm saying? Like but it's all because you get married and like what, 7 years in, I guess 10 years in, you're like, who the heck is that person? Like that's not who I signed up to be with all my life, and this book is such a breath of fresh air. I'm sorry. I know that you only seek Muslim clients, but I'm going to just recommend this to all people everywhere. Like, this is the book that people need if you're planning on having any kind of intimate relationship. It just helps you cut through all the I cuss bullshit, So it's like the greatest thing I've ever read. I just have to tell you that. So
thank you. Yeah, I mean, so that was the number one intention, right? Was to allow people to appreciate the difference between empty talk and saying words that are not, you're not connecting, you're not going deeper, you're not learning, you're not nothing. It's just empty talk. And then the second intention is to give people permission, like you said, to give people permission, because a lot of times we do know, you know what? Sounds like this person has debt. Like, but I can't, it's too early to ask about it. Oh, now I'm too far deep and I love them. And so it'll work out, inshallah. And at every point we talk ourselves out of asking like the important question, right? And so using a book as a framework, which is why we recommend like just go through the sections. Just go through the sections, because by doing that, you'll cover all the things and you'll get, you won't have any of that resistance from you asking and from the other person asking you, right? Because you each have to answer. Sometimes we get that, like, well, why'd you ask me that? Why'd you ask me? Oh, it's just because it's in the book, right? Like you haven't
right. I'm just reading.
Exactly. Like, why are you asking about intimacy? Do you have any intimacy problems? Like, oh, you could immediately, like, instead of answering the question, get into a whole ego type of thing and evolve. So when you use the book, you have permission. Like, we're just going through this book. It was no judgment. It was no, like, I'm not, criticizing you or evaluating you or assuming that you have this or that. It's just, these are things that are important and let's talk about them. So it gives people that permission. And then finally, the last point is to help people like speed up the process, because that's the other trend, to see people talking and talking and talking and talking and talking for, months, a year, and now we're engaged and we're planning, and then it all breaks up. We're like, and then so many people come to me, at the end, like he said something like, oh, we didn't share the same, religious, level of religiosity or something. And she's like, but we talked about that. Well, we talked about that. I'm like, but did you really? Did you talk about this? Did you say that? Did you ask about this? You talked about it, but did you come to an agreement? Did you come to a mutual understanding? Did you resolve the difference? Like, no, we just talked about that I'm different and they're different, and talked about it and felt like eventually if we keep going and we love each other about so many other things, that thing will work out, and you never resolved it. And so then it fell apart. So it's also to help people speed up the process. Like if you're talking and you're like, whoa, that's a totally different perspective that is not something I'm on board with, or that I like, or that I agree with, or is in my worldview, be like, now I can break up with you, right? With substance.
Yeah.
And when you break up with substance, you don't have any of the things that torment people, right? The things that torment people are like, oh, maybe I should have tried harder, or could we have worked it out more, or maybe they were the one and I was just being too picky. But when you break up on substance, like, no, their fundamental values around this thing is not something that I agree with, and I could not see myself living 20, 30, 50 years with something like that. So, alhamdulillah, I found that out, and I can let it go without tormenting myself.
Yeah.
So it allows people to do that. And then on the flip side, when you meet someone and you realize, oh my God, yes, our values align here. Okay, we align here. Okay, this is a little bit sticky, but all right, we're working through it. We've resolved it, come to some compromise. You set yourself up with such a strong foundation so that when you do get married and you close the door to your house the first time that you're alone, it's not like, okay, are you the same as what you've been telling me this whole time?
It's like,
I'm gonna find out.
Oh Allah, let this person, like I seek refuge.
Exactly. Right? And you close the door, like, oh no, I know you, we got this is great, as opposed to like, okay, we were both putting on a show and like da-da-da, and now here we are, and like, okay, yeah, let's take some pictures for social media.
Don't we look so cute? Like, I love that. Well, I want to take a really quick commercial break, and then we'll come back and talk a little bit about what to do when, you go through the questions and he or she is not the person. We'll be right back. Are you owning the true leader you are? Staying in the continuous flow of curiosity, presence, gratitude, and joy? Opening the door to the energetic flow of reciprocity, and guess the benefits: financial opportunities, gifts, compassion, gratitude, love, joy, a healthy body, mind, and soul, and abundance. Are you ready to create better in 2023? Great!
Beginning on July 7th, I'm starting the Joy in Presence group. This is only for serious women who desire to create and live into a better future, a world filled with everything you've ever imagined and so much more. Sign up for your Joy to Connect session and create a better 2023.
And we're back. So let's talk about that a little bit more. So let's say someone has actually used your book to go through the process and it's just not a match.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm sure it's going to take a while to get through the book together, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there will be some level of emotional attachment. And what can someone do to really embrace that they are breaking up with substance for a change?
Yeah. So what I would say is, okay, the way that we've designed the book is kind of the topics are in order of priority. So we start with intentions, which is, the foundation of anything, is to go through intentions. And then as you work through the book, if you come to first of all, if you come to any red flag, whatever your red flag is for you, you have to either resolve that red flag or walk away. So if there's a red flag, address it, resolve it. And if it's not resolved, you have to walk away. So that's a breaking point. And then if you are going through the questions and maybe if you have two topics that you're just we're not vibing, this is not the way I see myself living. And that's the key piece here, is to really honor yourself and the way that you want to live. People can get caught up in the fantasy, in the fairy tale, in the sense that they'll be like, well, I could do that. That would be okay for me. It's not going to be that bad. And they just compromise immediately, right? They've heard something. Let's say the person, answering a question first, and you hear what they say, and it's not at all what you want, and then you immediately start to compromise. If you are doing that, and you're doing that for several questions or several topics in a row, that is a sign that you are not aligned. And to allow yourself to exit at that point. You don't need to go through the whole book, or go talk about all the topics. When you realize there's, important aspects that you are not aligned with, that's your moment to walk away before you get more emotionally invested, before you take up more of your time. And
so to clarify, this is not a textbook. It is not a requirement to complete the entire book. If you come to a question or a section and there's too much misalignment, you must stop.
Yes.
And end it.
Yes, exactly.
And this book is the permission to do that, and it's perfectly okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Totally. And again, so I said go through the topics in order, but if there's a topic that is super important to you, after, I would say still do intentions first. Then after that, you could jump straight to that topic. For example, when I was in my courtship process, I had a friend who was going through a divorce, and we were like, oh, you guys seem picture perfect. What's going on? And it took her a while to tell us. She was like, whatever. And then she finally told us that it was intimacy issues, that they'd never consummated their marriage. And, this is 8 months into their marriage. And she had, expressed interest. She had made advances, and he kept shutting her down and telling her things like this and that, whatever. And so essentially they were living as roommates. They started sleeping in separate beds and just each living their own separate lives. And it was really an eye-opener for me, because I had been that little good Muslim girl, and I had never talked about intimacy with anyone, let alone a strange man.
Right.
And when we were in our courtship process, my now husband, but then strange man, was like, I do want us to talk about intimacy. And I was like, what? Like, no, we don't need to talk about that. There's nothing to talk about. We don't need to talk about that. And he was like, eventually, like, because we were going through questions. He's like, eventually, I want to, I'm putting that on the list of topics. And I was like, oh my god, like, you're not going to talk about that. And then my friend is getting a divorce because of intimacy. I was like, oh my god, we have to talk about this.
These things happen at the right time. So this
Yeah.
is another really good point because, you know, I want to talk about this for a minute. A lot of young women in the Muslim community are taught, it's not appropriate to talk about those things or think about those things. And I don't really know what the conversation is on the men's side, but it seems that a lot of male or young Muslim men, they kind of grow up with a really unrealistic worldview on intimacy, So we've got like the good little Muslim girl that has never talked about it with anyone, right? Who doesn't want to talk about it. And then we've got the Muslim man that made it, maybe has even had experiences, right? And so I love that your book gives again permission for these two young people to have, or old people, it depends, right? Have the opportunity to just say, look, I've never talked about this before, but I know a condition of marriage is having kids. So we're probably going to have to talk about this,
Mhm.
So, yeah.
Yeah. So, like, for example, in that case, like, if, that friend of mine was using my book, she might do intentions and then go straight to intimacy. Like, let me, because she just got divorced from that. So that might be the most pressing thing on her mind, being like, tell me about this. Because if you have those issues, I'm not having a repeat, right, of what I just experienced.
Right.
Or you may, have your own health concerns and you want to go straight into the health section because you want to feel comfortable that they are going to, for example, I have one of my mom's friends that she has a genetic condition that makes her legally blind, but like up close she can kind of see, but she'd never be able to drive. There's no operation, no nothing that can be done so that she could drive. And because it's genetic, it's possible that it would be passed down to her children. And I remember her talking with me. She's like, that was my biggest concern. And so I had a lot of conversations around, I have this condition. You will always, have to drive me around. These are whatever the other ramifications of this illness are, and that it could be passed on to my children. And that was her, important topic to first get clarity on. Are you good with this? And once she feels good with this, okay, now we can do the rest of the topics because this one is critical for my well-being in a marriage. So if you have that, yes, jump to that section, that topic, if it's finances, if it's whatever it is that, is so pressing and so important to you, because again, that will help you to break up on substance, right? A lot of times some people are like, well, let me see if I like them about all these little things. And then I'll tell them about, my main thing and see if it, we align there. But if you do it that way, it's problematic for yourself for two reasons. One, you may align on all these other small things. So you'll begin to build this emotional connection. Oh my God, this is great. Oh my God, oh my God. And then you get to that important topic for yourself. And then you're like, oh my God, we don't align. And you might begin to make excuses. Maybe you can make it work. Maybe you can work it. But if this is like really critical, right, to you, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. But you sabotaged yourself from being able to now to be in an empowered position to say, this isn't going to work for me because this is so important. The other reason that it is problematic to save your important issues for later is just that you're wasting time. You're just wasting time because it's in the back of your mind the whole time. Like, okay, but I really need to tell them that, whatever it is that, my father is in prison or something, and you're just hiding it. The whole time you're just going to be anxious, and then you're like, okay, my father's in prison. And you're like, okay, why didn't you tell me that before? Like,
Right.
it's kind of important for me to know.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really good. That I love that it's bringing out all the issues straight away. I still wonder. So reading the book I feel like they have to have a component of someone to talk to, So do you recommend them finding someone locally? Because I know like not all masajid are the same. They don't all have like something for single Muslims or like classes or someone to go to. So what do they do if they're like almost a match and they still need some help? What should they do next?
So my husband and I offer coaching. So we support people who want to like have, personal guidance through it, right? The book the book is a tremendous support, and you can use it to guide yourself. But if you feel like we want to talk to someone, you can reach out to my husband and I for coaching. And of course, there are your community, your family, your sheikhs, your people who have therapists. You can reach out to others for support. You want to look for someone who is experienced in this area, can give you more than platitudes. And unfortunately, a lot of religious of our imams and sheikhs kind of just pray more, make more dua, and recite astaghfirullah, and might give you something like that. So you want to approach someone who's going to give you more substance, who's going to hear more about what's going on between the two of you for support. But I would also say that there is a big component of being able to trust yourself, to really allow yourself to trust yourself and allow yourself to walk away when it's, you originally wanted to come back, and like, how do you break up without, to trust that if you come to some, topic, some issue, and there is no alignment there, to believe, to have good faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that He wants you to have someone with the topic that you care so much about, that you would have alignment. And so that you can say, this is my sign that this is not the one, and I can walk away on the substance of this and feel confident that Allah will bring me something better, and demonstrate that faith for your own self. Because otherwise, even if a person listening has not experienced that heartbreak, I'm sure you know a friend who has experienced that heartbreak, and everyone around them is like, why are you staying? It sounds like you're not happy. It sounds like it's not working. And they're just staying, and you can see it from the outside. So try to allow yourself to see it for your own self, right? So many times we can see for other people what we're blind to for ourselves. And what we're hoping with this book is to support you to not be blind to your own self. Like, oh my gosh, this is an important topic for me. It's not working out. I'm going to walk away. I'm going to trust that Allah has something better. And I'm not going to give into that, really just the fear that no one else is going to come along, that I'm making a mistake, that I'm being too picky, that maybe this is my test, that I need to sacrifice the thing that's most important to me and be miserable. And no. Allah,
it's not that deep. Yeah. Right?
This is your sign to walk away.
Yeah, it's like totally fine to walk away. It's not like one and done, right? And it doesn't mean anything. You don't have to make it mean anything, right? If you just didn't, find the best one the first time, second time, third time, it's okay to vet. It's kind of like looking for a job, right? Or looking for, it's like looking for a job. You want to make sure that you're going to have all the features and benefits, that you're seeking. And so I'm also hearing like this is really an exercise in, first and foremost, self-awareness, compassion, self-forgiveness on some levels, and then self-trust in the end. And those are very necessary to even have a marriage. So just if people can think of the vetting and courtship process as preparation for who you have to be to stay married, right? Mm-hmm. Once you get married, it's not a destination either. Marriage is not a destination, right? It's just like, it's the beginning.
Yes, that's such a beautiful point, because when you frame it in that way, it allows you to give yourself that permission to be free, right? So I'll use my personal example. And I might have shared this in another podcast if anyone's listened to me on the Salon Girl podcast. But when it came to marriage for me, in so many ways, because I was that good Muslim girl, I was giving away myself, you know, a dutiful daughter, trying to be a good sister, a helpful friend, be a good student, like just doing all the obligations, all the things that I was supposed to. So when it came to marriage, I knew that, like, oh my God, I don't want to be in a marriage where I'm just like trying to just be the good wife, like do all the things, because I'm tired of doing that. I want my marriage to be a place where I can relax, where I can be free, where I can be free to be me, where I can get supported. And so knowing that crystal clear for myself, allowed me to approach the courtship process kind of just like walking in totally free, like, hey, this is me, right? Like, and I'm an introvert, so like I'm introverted. I like quiet nights in. I whatever, all the things, so the thing about us humans is we think that the way that we are is somehow bad and defective, right? Because I'm an introvert, I think extroverts are better. And because, I'm kind of, maybe studious or nerdy, I think people who are more free-spirited and adventurous are better. So all of these things about myself that normally I try to, in social settings, be more outgoing, be more blah, 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 because I think that the way I am is not good. When it came to courtship, I was like, yo, this is me. This is me. And I was just totally, absolutely 100% myself, because what I kept telling myself is, I don't want the door to close after our wedding and for them to be like, wait, I thought you were more fun, or I thought you loved to stay up until midnight, or and it was like, I want them to know exactly what they're getting, and who I am, and what I like and what I dislike and what my opinions are, so that nothing is a surprise, that I will never hear, I thought, or you seem different. Like, no, it was crystal clear. And that attitude that I held made our courtship so fast, because we were talking about all these questions. We're getting deep into it. I'm saying exactly who I am. I had talked to maybe like 2 or 3 people before that. And those courtships were also, they were not even courtships. It was just like 2 or 3 conversations. I was like, we don't align, goodbye. And with my husband, it took us 2 months, and we were like, we align on all these things, because we just went in straight deep. And the beautiful thing about it is that if one of you goes in deep, the other will follow, right? When one person stays shallow, the other will follow. So in that sense, it's so helpful for the process for you to just take the lead, take ownership, and be like, I'm going to go deep, even though it seems scary. It seems so scary to be open and vulnerable in that way, to let people know the truth of who we are, because the scariest things to our ego, to ourself, is that we'll tell people the truth of who we are and they will reject us. But the beautiful thing is, when you tell people the truth of who you are, they will first of all just see you, and usually they will accept you. And then even if they're not aligned, again, it gives them the opportunity to be like, oh, well, this is not what I'm looking for. And I can now break up with you on substance instead of ghosting you, or, making up some random story. I mean, how many times have we heard the random story? Like, that doesn't make any sense, because someone was scared to tell the truth of the substance, so they make up some random story.
Oh man, I love that. Like everything you said, that was, whew. Yeah, it's so true. This is the beginning of the rest of your life when you get married. You have to be free to be, and you have to be free, you have to allow your partner to also be free to be, and that's the only way to go into union with two free whole beings. Yeah,
absolutely. And another thing that can help people to be able to do that, at least for me, for when I was introduced to my husband, he was somebody I did not know at all, right? He was not in my friend circle, in my network. It was like a friend of a friend connection, and he was in another state. So it was just like a total complete stranger. So it also made it easy for me to be like, he doesn't know anything about how I am or
Right.
who I am. He doesn't have these preconceived notions. So I can show up on this call the wife that I want to be. And that's also
Mm.
I was like, when I get married, I want to be like this. So I'm going to come into this like this. And so that's how I showed up. I showed up as like wanting support. I showed up as, if you made a request, like, no, I can't help you right now, setting more boundaries, because he doesn't know that I normally don't set boundaries. Like, no, I always set boundaries. And I always like be that person. And then it supported me to actually step into, become that person, because he accepted it. He was like, okay. I was like, oh my God, this wasn't that hard. I could do this. I mean, I'm still working on it on all my other relationships. I did it here with my marriage. So you can do this too. Even if you think like, well, they do kind of know me or they've heard about me. No one knows anyone.
No one really knows anybody. Yeah.
You can just show up and be like, I don't know what you heard, but this is how I am. And the other part about it is people get afraid, like, well, I'm going to open up and be vulnerable to this person, and then they're going to know all these things if it doesn't work out. Like, I first have to do all this shallow, low-level stuff to know if I can trust them to go deeper. But it's actually, again, a beautiful thing. I could tell, when I was courting, I could tell him all of these things about maybe my family or my history or my childhood or these things. And I actually didn't have any fear, because, like, who's he going to tell? Who's he going to tell afterwards? I talked to this girl, and who's going to listen to this story about the courtship that failed and let me tell you all of the intimate things about her? Like, no one's going to do it. No, they will again honor you for like, wow, this person trusted me with all of this stuff, and I found out that we're actually not aligned on this really important thing, and we walked away. You're not going to go out and start spreading and telling your secrets. Like, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. So if that fear is there for anyone, the being open and vulnerable is literally only a gift that you give yourself.
And it also sounds like the whole process is really to the elevation of your soul and an exercise in personal development and a preparation for creating who you choose to be as a spouse, Yeah. So I have really enjoyed this conversation. And for our viewers and listeners, share this with a person that that's seeking marriage. And if you are in a marriage, I think this information is also useful. Would you say that your book could be used to save a marriage?
That's not its intention.
I know, yeah.
We have sent it to several married couples to review, and you're included in one amongst them. And they have said how helpful and supportive the book has been for even just like having renewed conversations within their marriage. So I do think it has that capacity. And we're working on a new kind of introduction and forward that might expand and allow that to be more clear on how it could support married couples. But definitely the questions within the book are questions that we have to keep revisiting, because that's the other thing about it, right? Your answers are going to change over time. And that's why I said in the beginning, you want to go to the deeper level, because it's not that, oh, you want to be nomadic and I want to be settled down. It's what's the deeper value, because then it could flip, right? In 20 years, in 10 years, like, oh, now, the kids are out of the house. Now I want to be nomadic and the other person wants to settle down. Like, your answers can totally change. But when you understand your values, you will not be like, why are you changing? How could you say that? You'll understand like, oh, it's because you value this. And now that the circumstances, the situation, a pandemic happened or whatever, you will understand why their answer changed, because you knew their values. And so it's good to revisit those things, because again, that can be what does lead to stress over time in a marriage, is that feeling of you've changed. You told me you were like this and you've changed. And yes, everyone, we're supposed to change. We're not all staying the same. We're not,
yes, I hope you change. Do not stay. Yes. Yeah, that would not be exciting.
No. So yeah, you want to change. It's that, are you changing kind of in like the same pace and like expressing how you're changing? And so going through questions can help you know, like, oh, that's what's happened. That's why you changed, or that's why your views shifted on this, or I see, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, I love it. So the way I love to end my conversations here on the Free to Be show are, if you can, share in one word what would be the golden takeaway from our conversation tonight.
I think the one word is acceptance. And I choose that word because the whole process of courtship is to allow you to accept yourself, to accept that you are lovable just as you are, and then to believe that someone will accept you just as you are. So that acceptance is really what you're trying to get to accept yourself and to know that you will be accepted.
Yes, I love that. Well, thank you, Zaha, for being here. And you are my final guest for this season, because my final topic is loving and detachment. So, however, this is not the final episode. I will be coming back next week with a solo episode to wrap up the season. So that was just a decision I came to today.
Nice.
Yeah. But I love this conversation, and thank you for everyone who was here live, and for those of you who watch on the replay. Like I said, please take notes. I'm going to drop the link for the book again in the comments, so you can get a copy. And yeah, until next week, be free.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you for joining the conversation. Now, take the time to reflect, introspect, and implement at least one action. Be in your body, be in your soul, be in your spirit. You know, be free. Until next week.